here we are on Ephesians chapter 2. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Right here. Okay. Ephesians chapter 2.
Okay, so Ephesians chapter 2, we looked at verse 1 last week as review. If you keep in mind what Paul has been talking about beginning in chapter 1 are the blessings of our salvation, really what blessings our salvation brings to us, and really the all-encompassing aspect of what salvation is. He began talking back in chapter 1 about Christ's role in our salvation and some of the things that he was praying that we would understand about our salvation. And he's going to get into this chapter talking about the past, present, and future aspects of our salvation. Verses 1 through 3 deal with the past, which is our need for salvation. As MacArthur puts it in this section, this is what we are saved from. We are saved from our sin. And then he's going to talk about the present aspects of our salvation, how salvation happens, and then what salvation brings as we get into chapter 2. So we began looking at this last week, and when we first started this whole section, I said that when this is talking about sin, it is talking about not our actions of sin, but what?
Nobody knows.
Remember?
I don't remember.
So it's not our practice, but our what? Our what?
Our existence in sin? Our
The
state?
sphere of existence, yes. So our position, the sphere, we were in sin. So it was where we were, is who we are.
Yeah.
It's our, you can call it our position, our character, our sphere of existence. We were in sin, and it says we were dead in sin, which means we had no ability to get ourselves out of that issue. And that's really what this entire section is about. When you look at verses 1, 2, and 3, it's not specifically talking about the individual acts that we do, that we would call sins. It is talking about the person that we are, which results in those individual actions. So, or were, excuse me. Because remember, who is he talking to? He's talking to the Ephesians. And if you look back in chapter 1, we know it's the saints in Ephesus. So he's talking to Christians. Oh, sorry. He's talking to Christians, and very importantly, he says you were dead in trespasses, not you are. So Christians are not anymore, are no longer dead in trespasses and sins. In fact, Paul uses the same type of language in Romans 6 when saying who we are now. We are dead to sin. So we were dead in sin. Now, as believers, we're dead to sin. So it doesn't have the same influence on us as it once did because our sphere of existence has changed. So you were dead in trespasses and sins, and we covered that in depth last week. He then begins verse 2 with this phrase, in which begins again to give us the sphere of existence. So the trespasses and sins are in which you once walked, according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience, among whom we also once conducted ourselves in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others. Now you notice all three of these verses are one long sentence, and you don't get the period until there. So he sets up the entire concept here with verse 1, and then begins to describe what being dead in trespasses and sins means in verses 2 and 3. What does it look like? How does it impact you? What does it mean? Who does it make you? And it changes who you are, changes what you do, and changes your character, changes how you live, changes what your interests are, changes everything about you. Your nature changes your actions. So he describes believers as having at one time being those who walked according to the course of this world. So if that's who we were, this is an accurate depiction of unbelievers currently. So if we consider this from a couple of different perspectives, we can look at it from the perspective of, praise God, we're not like this anymore. Thank the Lord that he brought us out of this. Again, he brings forward, he made alive from verse 4, showing that it wasn't us that did it, God did it. But thank the Lord, he did this. He took us out of this sphere of existence. And so we can praise the Lord for that. It's a miracle that he raised us from the dead. We were dead, he made us alive. So I've often used the illustration that we are not those who are sick in a hospital in need of the right medicine. We are in the hospital, but we're down in the basement because we're in the morgue with tags on our toes.
Right.
And he has not just given us the right medicine, he's actually raised us from the dead. So praise the Lord for that. That's one aspect that we can look at this. The second aspect is when we consider our role and our responsibility and our privilege of sharing the gospel with people, we're not trying to argue them into a decision. We can't.
Right.
We can no more raise anybody else from the dead than we could raise ourselves from the dead. We are with prayer and weeping and excitement and encouragement and begging almost. With all of that, all of the emotion involved in understanding that people are on their way to hell, we are sharing with them the best news that they've ever heard and leaving the results with God as far as raising them from the dead. So we understand that our role is not to save people. We can't. Our role is to be on our knees praying that God would work a miracle in people's lives and to be the instrument that God might use to do that by sharing the gospel. And God is the one who saves people because he's the only one that can change this whole thing. He's the only one that can change someone's nature, which is the big problem that everybody has. You see, the big problem isn't that they commit sins necessarily, but that they're dead in sin. The big problem is that we are dead to God. We're dead to spiritual life. We have no desire. We're enemies of God. And so it takes God to change that. And that's why our prayers are so important regarding people's spiritual lives. Our prayers are vitally important. God uses those to bring about the change that he desires. So that's a little application there already. Sorry about that. So his further description of being dead in trespasses and sins, he describes it in a few different ways. He describes it as walking according to, and then you're going to see the course, according to the prince, according to the spirit, and then he's going to describe us as conducting ourselves. So walking and conducting. Well, those are action words. And so our position, our sphere of influence, our sphere of existence shows itself in how we live. It shows itself in what our interests are. It shows itself in our relationship to God, being an enemy of God, and also in our relationship to the prince of the power of the air, who's Satan. So we are walking according to the course of this world. If we were to say if you were to define the course of this world, how would you define that? What does he mean by that?
The pattern of sin that we see in the world. A
Say
direction?
that again, Jim.
The pattern of sin that we see in the world.
Okay, a pattern of sin that we see in the world of unbelievers that we see. What does he mean by the world? I mean, does he mean the earth around us, the cosmos?
Mm. Mm-mm.
Does he mean the world in the sense that God so loved the world, Jews and Gentiles? What does he mean by the world?
Mm. There's some Greek word for that.
Well, it is the Greek word cosmos, but what is the meaning of that in this context?
Is it cultural or the way it is, the direction it's going in by those who live in it? I mean, is it the the culture we live, society as a whole?
Yeah, I know what you're getting at, and yes. How I would define it more specifically, using terms, is a system that sets itself in opposition to God. That's what I'm thinking you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that it is the culture, the atmosphere we live in that is opposed to God. And so when you look out around you, see, we have a mistaken view sometimes that everybody's just nice people and they're all, if they just had the right upbringing, the right things going on to them and happening around them, that maybe they would end up okay and maybe they'd be acceptable to God. And the reality is they're not, and neither were we. They're enemies of God. They are opposed to God. And even the nicest people in the world are in opposition to God. I know people that are so kind and so nice, but they hate God. They are in opposition to God. That is the course of this world. It is going the wrong direction, as Richard mentioned, direction. It is the direction in opposition to God. And so the world is a system that has been set up in opposition to God. And we once walked according to the direction or the course of that system of opposition to God. Why in the world would God save anybody like that? I mean, this should cause us awe and amazement that God would save us when our entire aim, our entire direction was against him. So that's the first aspect. We once walked according to the course of this world. The second, according to, that we walked, and this could be a description either of what being dead in trespasses and sins brings, or what it means to walk according to the course of the world. It could be a description of this part, or it could be a secondary description of this part, being dead in trespasses and sins. It works for either. It's according to the prince of the power of the air. Now, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Who's that?
Who's the prince of the power of the air? Who's the prince of
That's Satan.
Satan?
It's Satan. Satan is the prince of the power of the air. He is a prince. He's not the king. He's a sub-ruler. He thinks he's a ruler when he's not. He's a prince of the power of the air. Now, that's not, we might find that to be an odd description, but he is a spiritual being. And so that's really why it uses that phrase. You think of down in chapter 6, verse 12, where it says, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. So he is called the prince of the power of the air. The world system moves according to, it follows his leadership. Now, that does not mean that everybody that is alive that is an unbeliever is demon possessed or indwelt by Satan. That's not necessarily what that means. What it does mean is that knowingly or unknowingly, they follow the leadership of their master, Satan. And Satan is their master. You only serve one or the other. You serve Satan or you serve God. And if you're serving yourself, you're serving Satan. So they, whether they know it or not, are following their master. He then describes further who Satan is. That's what this third one here is. The prince of the power of the air is the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience. Again, he's a spirit. He's a spiritual being. He's not flesh and blood. And so our battle isn't against flesh and blood. The unbelievers who are dead in their trespasses and sins, who are who we were, are not our enemies. They're our mission field. And that's always important for us to remember, you know, even in politics, which I like politics, although I stay away from it now because all it does is breed argumentation. The people who are on the other side of whatever issue we are not our enemies. They're our mission field. When we are, you know, we're opposed to abortion as Christians, but those who have gotten abortions, the abortion doctors, the politicians who fight for abortion, in one sense, they might be our political rivals, but in reality, they are our mission field. And so we must pray for them that the gospel would break through. They are serving their master, whether they know it or not. But we've got to be careful that we don't fight against them. We fight against their master, who is the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience. So Satan is working in, again, there's that word. We were dead in trespasses. He is the spirit who works in the son. So it's an internal thing more than just an external action. It is who they are. And he calls them sons of disobedience. You could call them daughters. We've got 10 minutes. So they're sons of disobedience. Why do you think he calls them sons of disobedience?
Is it because, I don't remember where it is, but maybe John, that says that Satan is the father of lies?
That is exactly what I have down. You read my mind. That is probably one of the most obvious references to this that Jesus mentioned in John 8, where he speaking to the Pharisees and to the crowds that did not believe in him. He says, "You are of your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there's no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies." And the reason why he told them that they were of their father, the devil, is because they were acting like their father. Sons act like their parents, is the idea. When someone is called the son of somebody, they are the son of someone because they represent that person. They act like that person in a metaphorical sense. And so they're sons of disobedience because Satan is the father of disobedience. He started it all. And they are his sons in that they act out just like he did. They do the same thing. And remember, he's talking to the Ephesian Christians. We used to. That's who we were. So as we're describing unbelievers at this point, remember that was us. We can never forget what he's doing here. He's talking about how bad we were. So we once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience. Even if you were saved as a 4-year-old young child, you had 4 years of rank disobedience, of rebellion against God, of wanting your own way. And I don't know that any of us here were saved when we were 4. I don't know. I added a few more years onto that. So any questions about verse 2? Okay. So moving on to verse 3, he's going to use, so he talked about in which here in verse 2. talking about the character of our being dead in trespasses and sins. Now he's going to use another one of those types of phrases, among whom. Do this, among whom. Now, what is that referring to? Among whom?
Three. Back to all those dead people.
Yeah, the sons of disobedience, right? All those dead people. So the Spirit now works in the son of disobedience, among whom also we once conducted ourselves. So we were among the sons of disobedience, is what he's saying. And we, at one point, lived like those sons of disobedience. We conducted ourselves like sons of disobedience. That it wasn't just who we were, it was what we did. It was how we acted, how we lived. We lived like sons and daughters of disobedience. Our character impacted our actions. This is the way it always is. When somebody lies, it's because they're a liar. When somebody steals, it's because they're a thief. When somebody acts in a haughty manner, it's because they're proud. They don't become liars by lying. They just show who they really are. We lived a certain way because we were sons and daughters of disobedience. That's who we were. And who we were impacted what we did. All of that's going to change in verse 4. And that's why when you look at the letters of Paul, when you look at the letters of John, when you look at what Peter had to write, they are absolutely beside themselves when Christians don't live like Christians. When Christians live like the world, like they used to live, they are just almost irate because your nature has changed. Your character has changed. Who you are is different. You were dead. Now you're alive. You should be different. You should live differently because you are different. At one point, you were dead in trespasses and sins, but he made you alive. And so Paul is going to get into that. Once you get into chapter 4, he's going to just bullet point one after another, just hit you with, stop doing this, start doing this, stop doing this, start doing this. Why in the world are you still doing this? You should be doing this because you're a believer. You're different now. At one point, you conducted yourself in the lust of your flesh. Now we know from John, that's one of the 3 major areas of sin, right? The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And I know a lot of people have tried to differentiate between those 3, and well, the lust of the flesh is the sensual aspect. The lust of the eyes is when you go after stuff. You and the pride of life is your own internal pride. Okay, I'm fine with that. I don't know that it's hard to separate them necessarily into 3 different categories, that there are only 3 categories of sin and they all can be sorted into this. I think it's just general terms that he's using to describe lusts. Now, lust, what is a lust?
Desire.
The desire, right? It's interesting. The word lust in the Greek is the Greek word, generic word for desire. It's epithemia, and epithemia just means something you want, a desire. It could be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. You can have good epithemias or you can have bad epithemias. And in the English translations, they translate it desires when it's a good thing, and they translate it lusts when it's a bad thing, typically. So it's the same word, but pointed in different directions. So you can have good desires for things in this life, and you can have the same things be the object of bad desires, depending on why you have those desires and how strong they are and to what they're directed. Obviously, in this case, it's a bad desire. Lust of the flesh has to do with earthly things. We conducted ourselves with extreme desire for earthly things, not heavenly things. We were after the things of life. We didn't care about eternity. We didn't care about God. That's who we were. And because of that, we fulfilled the desires of the flesh. Again, it's the same word, epithemia, desires. We went after those things and sought to do everything we can. The problem with this word fulfilling is, what have you discovered about desires and lust of the flesh? In
They
regards
don't.
to
Not fulfilled.
they don't. They don't fulfill anything. That's
No.
why you got to keep coming back for more. Why do you think alcoholics need more alcohol? Or people that get hooked on pornography need more and more pornography? Or people that need money want more and more money? It never fulfills you. We have less than a minute, so I'm going to wrap this up. So this is who you were. This is what you did. And you were by nature, that is by birth, by being a human being, you were by nature children. Again, there's that sons, children of wrath, of God's
Maybe that's
anger.
why the word is fulfilling and not fulfilled.
Not fulfilled. Yeah, that could be. It's a present tense, so it just keeps going. You keep trying it.
Mm-hmm.
You were by nature children of wrath. So the problem is our nature. That's what needed to be changed. The problem is we were dead. That's what needs to be changed. And God does that. Next week, we're going to look at how God does that. And we're going to wrap up with that. Any other questions on all of this?
Nope.
No questions. All right. So that is Ephesians 2, 1 through 3. That's who we were. Pretty bleak picture. You can see why it takes a miracle. Praise God. This phrase, he made alive, is in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to stop sharing and we can see ourselves again. Well, I guess we lost Jim, didn't we?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Sorry, Jim. We'll miss you. Anyway, it was good seeing you guys. And
Okay.
hopefully we'll have some information about church. I'll send out an email if we're going to have it. I'll talk with Richard a little bit more about it and maybe with Rob and Jim and see if we can get anything in there. Hey,